Let's talk a little more about op art. You just saw some pieces by Bridget Riley. This is a piece by M.C. Escher, another famous op artist known for his optical illusions that would play tricks on your eye. And that's basically what op art is it's artwork that is confusing and exciting your eyes at the same time, playing a trick. Here is a piece that is just lines and squares with dots at the corners of all the squares in this grid. And are the dots white or are the dots gray? Well, for me, as I look at different dots, it feels like they're moving and changing color, and that's probably what you see as well. Here is a piece by Bridget Riley, and movement in squares. She's using the simple shape of the square, but she's altering the shape, and that's one of the main ways that op artists can mess with our eyes and how we perceive a piece, because this is just a flat painting that she made, but because she changes the shape of the squares and they gradually become narrower, like rectangles or lines, it feels like they are moving away from us, that they're going into the back. She also uses very high contrast colors of black and white, and that's another way that op artists help play those tricks on our eyes. In this piece, she also has some value changes. So we have these wavy lines that help create the movement. And the wavy lines start dark and black, and then gradually they become lighter and lighter until they're a very, very light gray. That is a change of value. A color's value just refers to how light or how dark it is. So in this case, the darkest value is when it is black in the middle, and then it gradually becomes lighter and lighter till it is of the lightest value. In this piece, she has both a change in value, but also a change in the size of those dots. The circles or dots, they start out normal, I guess, and then they gradually become narrower and narrower, and it gives that illusion that they are, again, moving away from us. This piece is actually almost a little hard for me to look at. The way that the lines are really tight together and the use of red as well with the black and white really gives a lot of movement and really almost makes it hard to look at the piece. Here are some more examples of op art. Now, with this piece, most of you will probably see the white as the shape or the positive space first, which is a wine goblet. But if you focus on what is, I guess, kind of the background, the black space, you'll notice that you see a second image, two faces looking at each other. So let's stare at the plus sign in the center for a second. And if you see, after a few seconds, the dot that appears to be moving around the outside changes in color to a light green. This piece is really strange to look at. It feels like all of these are gears that are moving. The use of both these very high contrast colors and the way that the shapes within the circles change size and become smaller. There's a lot going on to create this constant movement depending on which area you're looking at. And then this is one of my favorites. It really feels like you're being sucked into this tunnel, the way that the shapes are laid out. And then we also have these little flecks of bright colors within the black areas so it gives the feeling of light being around you as you're being pulled towards the center. So again, artists use a lot of contrasting colors when they're trying to create the visual effects in op art. They switch the size of the shapes to help create that idea that it might be moving away from you. And they shift the color's value. And so that just means to make it darker or lighter. You can have things of a dark value or a light value, and the change in that within the piece also helps give the appearance that something is fading away.
Okay, now that we have looked at some op art, we're going to make our own op art, and we're going to make ours using some paper and doing paper weaving. So this is a sample of our finished product, and yours may look a little bit different than this. Before we dive into the project, I want to talk a little bit about weaving. I don't know if any of you have done any paper weaving before. So this is my little sample, and I have a strip already in here. This is a weft strip, and these are my warp strips. So I have the one strip going this direction and the other, the warp strips, going this direction. And I'm going to weave another strip of the green in between my warp strips. So this is the weft, this is the warp. And we're just going to use a simple A-B-A-B weaving pattern, which basically just means under, over, or over, under. And so for this first piece that I put down, I started over, then I went under the next, over again, under, over, under, and over. So for the second one that I'm going to start it under, then I'm going to go over, under, over, under, over, and under again, so that it looks like every other one, just like that. And then if I were to continue weaving this with another piece of green, I would start my next strip over and go under. So it creates a little bit of a checkerboard pattern. But we are going to be cutting our paper loom, our warp strips for our weaving, at an angle so that we get that warped perspective that you see sometimes in op art. So right now you will need a black sheet of construction paper like this and a pair of scissors. And I want you to put it in front of you vertically like I have. And then what we're going to do is we're going to fold it in half, moving the top or the bottom to the top. So fold it in half, bringing the bottom to the top and crease it there. So you should have the folded edge closest to you and the open edge at the top of your desk. Now, I also want you to use kind of your finger as a guide, maybe 1 or 2 fingers width, to fold down this top edge, because this is going to kind of give us the barrier or the line that we don't want to cut past when we're cutting our warp strips, okay? So we're not going to be cutting all the way through the paper, so this is sort of your guide to not cut all the way. Now, for my first cut, I am going to cut one line straight in the middle. So I'm just kind of eyeball what looks like the middle, and I'm going to cut straight up the center like that, and I'm stopping when I get to this little fold that I've made, and I'm cutting through both layers, the top and the bottom of my paper. Now, the next couple cuts I'm going to make, I'm going to have at an angle. And if you feel more comfortable, you can use a pencil to draw those first, just to make sure that you get them at the angle that you want. I am going to draw the lines just using this white marker so that you can kind of see what I mean by at an angle for when I'm going to be cutting. So you can see it's sort of a little bit like I'm cutting part of a triangle. And I'm going to do similar lines on this side that are pointing the opposite direction. And I'm just kind of eyeballing this. I'm going to start this one about the same spot. I want that to be at an angle. Okay, so that's generally how I'm going to cut my lines. So the middle one is straight, and then I have my other lines, my other 4 lines that I'm going to cut at an angle. And so now I'm just going to take my scissor and I'm going to cut at an angle. And you don't have to draw the lines first. You can just cut at an angle. I just wanted you to be able to see what I meant so that you got your cuts in the right spot. And again, all the cuts need to stop at this folded line. We don't want to go past that. Okay, so now I can open it up and I have my paper loom or my warp strips ready for my weaving. So you should have your black construction paper loom in front of you, and you should have cuts in it that look similar to mine. You will now also need paper strips, probably 10, maybe 9, but 9 or 10 paper strips, and they can be any combination of colors. You can do all the same color. You could alternate, you know, red, blue, red, blue, red, blue, every other one. You could do 3 different colors. I'm actually going to use all 5 colors for mine. And so I have 2 of each. I have 10 total strips, 2 of each. And I'm going to start at one end, and I'm just going to start doing that over, under weaving. And I'm going to start over, which means that my first strip is going to go over, under, over, under, over, and under. And I'm going to try to get it all the way to the edge like that. And then I'm just going to keep doing this, picking my colors as I go. And of course, because this strip started over, this one will go under. So you should have your strips and be working along with me. And now, okay, so that one then alternated. So you can see I've got my checkerboard pattern going on. And of course, if you realize that you messed up and you went over when you should have gone under, nothing is permanent. You can pull the strip out. You can make those changes. Okay, so this one needs to start under, over. We won't glue anything down until we get to the end. And, okay, I have to think about it every time. And I could start over with red. You know, I could go back to red and do the rainbow, but I think I might actually now do the reverse. Keep it purple and then go back to red on the end. So. Of course, you know, you don't have to keep it on one side. If as you're weaving you find that it's easier to flip it over as you go, so that, like that one, so that you can kind of keep everything in place, that's all right. Because both sides, this is one of those double-sided pieces of art. Each side will end up looking pretty cool. And sometimes they pop out as I'm doing the next strip. That's okay. Just put it back in place. Sometimes when you get to the end, I feel like it gets the trickiest when you're starting to run out of space. Okay, and now when you do get down to your last strip, if you don't feel like you have enough room and you need to trim it, you certainly can. I think I have enough room for mine, I think. Maybe I'll trim it a little bit. Or, you know, as you're going along, if you want to alter the size of the strips, you're certainly welcome to cut the strips to make them narrower as you go. You would just end up probably needing more strips. So this is my last one. And like I said, I feel like the last strip is the hardest to get in place. So I probably will end up flipping this around while I'm doing it. Okay. Oops. Okay. I think I need to adjust this yellow one. All right, so I have, oh, look at that. I messed up right at the end. What did I do wrong? See, happens to everybody. I went under when I should have gone over. I'm surprised I made it to the end without doing that first or earlier. Okay, so now I'm really at the end. And I'm going to get all of them kind of evenly lined up. That looks good. So now all I need to do is grab my glue stick and just secure the ends a little bit so that they don't keep moving around. And so on each side, I'm just going to take my glue stick and go under the edge like that. And I'll flip it over so I can do the back side as well. Well, I hope that you enjoyed learning a little bit about op art, and Bridget Riley, one of one of the well-known op artists from the 20th century. And of course, creating your own paper weaving version of op art. Thanks a lot.